Hey, it's Mr. Ramstead, and in this video, which is part two, I'm going to show you how to take the basic Autocrat setup using the demo with the demo job and customize it. So, as of right now, what we've done is we have set up Autocrat's basics. We've gone through and created an existing job, but it is a very stripped down job. So now what we want to do is we want to go in and start customizing this for our newsletter. The easiest way to do this is going to be to just start with this demo merge sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. Again, I like to name things so that I know what it is, and I'm going to call this newsletter input. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over here to the whoops, that was what I wanted right there, was the Autocrat demo template. This is the template that it's created, and you can see there's image URLs in here, image descriptions, and these things match with these headings right here. I don't need any of this stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this whole line here and I'm going to delete it, leaving me with just the names of the columns. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and rename these to be a little bit more user-friendly for myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put student, whoops, name, and actually I'm going to be a little bit more specific. I'm going to put their first name. Then what I'm going to do is parent email address. And I'm going to clean all these out here for just a second. In the next one, note to parent. And you know what? Let's just start with those. So what I'm going to also do is you noticed I deleted all the other column headers all the way over to this thing that says merged doc ID. Go ahead and keep that part in here. If you don't keep it, it's not the end of the world. But I'm going to go ahead and keep that in here. This is what Autocrat uses to work through the job. So now what I'm going to do is I've got that name, that email address, and the note to the parent. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some email or some information here. Um, and so let's say these are our 4 students. Over here, okay, so I'm going to put in a little piece of information here for Susie. For a kill, let's put in and you can see I'm just making these as long as I want. The other thing, in talking to people, they've said, wow, putting in this note to parent, that's going to be a whole lot to put in for, 20, 30, 50, 100 kids. You can also do things like this. And just do something like that. And just copy and paste it. Again, because these are going to the parents, they're not going to know the difference because they're only going to get the one for their student. So, and I'm going to, because I'm kind of a formatting person, I'm going to go in here and set that up so it looks a little bit nicer, like so. So I've got in those right there. Let me grab a couple of fake email addresses and put those in. Okay, so I'm not really going to use these email addresses. You're going to put in the parent email addresses. Also, one important note for this, I have not found a way myself to put in two email addresses into the same address thing. So what you'll have to do is if you're sending one to, let's say, two parents, then what you're going to, for the same student, then what you'll have to do is actually create two entries for the student. And about the only annoying thing about that is you need to remember to copy the note to parent. There are ways to have it do it automatically, but I'm not going to go into those in this video. So you can see now we have our student first name, our parent email address, and our note to parent. So we have all the things that are custom to that student. Now everything else that we need to do is going to be over here in this demo template. And the way that I started with my newsletter was to keep this information and kind of build my newsletter around it. A few people were interested in my newsletter itself, so I'm going to show you what I did. So the first thing that I did was I went and put in an image, and I actually used a custom image that I created, but you could pull up an image from the web, or an image that you take maybe of your classroom. I prefer to do things like that, but for what we're going to do right now is, let's see here, we'll just put in a classroom image like so, and then what I'm going to do is crop this way down. So let's say that's the top of our newsletter, and I am definitely not going to worry too much about how this looks. I'll let you kind of go in and play with that yourself. Um, but I'll try to put a little bit of something into it. Um, and so maybe something like that. And then what I'm going to do is right above it, put in the date that it's going to come out, and I'm going to kick that off to the right. And then after that, usually what I do is I will just go in and put a headline of some sort, and then hit return, and then put in my newsletter item. So I want to show you a little trick here in case you're not really as familiar with Google Docs. What I really like to do, I'm a big fan of keeping things consistent throughout the newsletter. So what I'll do is I will go in, and Mooly tends to be my choice right now. I'm going to go in and give it a nice big headline. And I'm going to make it a dark blue and underline it. And I always do that. There we go. Something like that. And then for my body copy, I like the same font, but I like it a lot thinner. And I also like to make things a little bit larger because just to make sure that everybody can read it, I'm going to go in and change my line spacing. Yeah, it's a little much. I think I'm going to go back and leave that there. The other thing that I'm going to do is on the headline, I'm going to put some space before it and some space after it. And then what I'll do is I'll go in and select that, and I'll go in here to this drop down, go to the heading 1 or the title. I prefer heading 1, and I will update the heading 1 to match. What that's going to do now is that's going to change the heading 1 to this. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select this text, and I'm going to let it create the paragraph breaks automatically for me, like so. I'm going to select this, and then under normal text, I'm going to update the normal text to match. What that's going to do now is when I go in and make that next headline, and then put in my body text, all I have to do is click on this, click this, and then click heading 1, and it'll automatically change that to that heading. So it makes it really easy for me to finish out that newsletter. I'm going to go ahead and add in an image here, and we'll do another web search. And perfect. And we'll put that in, and then I'm going to wrap the text around that, make that a lot smaller, and pull it over here to the right. Essentially, you can take this and do exactly what you would do with any other doc. Once you have that all done, the last part that you want to do is go back in and add those special tags. What I do is I just take this tag right here, and I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it right here. I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and clean out the rest of this and get rid of all that nonsense. And then down at the bottom, I'm going to add a table. And I like to do a 1x2 table. And on the left-hand side, I'll put my phone number, my Twitter, and my website. And then over on the right, I actually have a little graphic that I put in there, but you can also just take and put the Twitter and the website or whatever information that is relevant to your parents. If you have maybe specific hours that you keep and you want the parents to abide by that, you could put those things in there. Well, what they abide by is going to be up to them, but at least you'll have that information in there. And then what I'll do is I'll select that all. Let's see here. We'll go into our table properties. I'm not a big fan of the border, so I'll turn that off. And for the background, I'm just going to make it a light blue. And I'm going to have everything aligned to the middle. Then that way it just looks like one cohesive piece. Then the nice thing about it is I'll be updating the text as I go through each week, but I only have to update it once. Now, let's get back over here to this information. What I like to do is I like to copy student first name and note to parent. So I'm just going to copy those. I'm going to go back over here, and right below here, I'm just going to paste those two in here. Now, the reason I wanted to paste those is I need those exact column names. Once I've got those, then all I do is I'm going to cut and paste those in here. And I'm going to do the same thing right here. And looks like we got some spacing here, so I'm going to fix that up. And so now these are the items that are going to merge. So what I can do is I can go in and use these anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add it to the headline. So I'm going to put for, and then I'm going to put the student first name right in here. I'm going to go ahead and format it so that it's the same as the rest. And I'm actually going to format it so it's even the same color. Let's see, let's make it a lot smaller. And I'm going to go ahead and take that out. Now, because this says student first name, that's going to be replaced, and that's fairly long. And knowing my particular students, I know that they don't have incredibly long first names, so I know that that's all going to fit back on one line. Then what I'm going to do right after that is typically I will just put in the note to the parent by itself like this without a headline on it. And the reason for that is if I, for some reason, don't have a note to put in there, then it will automatically collapse down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take it out of here so that you can see what that looks like. So now what I've done is I've created a newsletter. I can go in each week and tweak this information, change the date, and I can even go as far as putting um, today, like so, and it will put in today's date for me. It's going to put in the student's first name here, the note to the parent, and then the rest of the information exactly as it is. So let's take a look at see how this all goes together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to add-ons. I'm going to go back to Autocrat, and now that I've created that Autocrat, I'm going to click launch again, and it's going to show up this time. The sample newsletter one that I created. Now, because I've changed a whole bunch of things, I'm going to have to go through parts of the setup again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Edit. It's going to look at those merge sheet headers, and you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click OK. We're going to go ahead and click Next. We're still using that same currently selected template, so we're just going to click through that. But now you can see here, student first name, note to parent. These are going to be standard items, so we're going to leave those alone, and we're going to map them to columns student first name and note to parent. What's happening here is the Autocrat is looking at the newsletter and seeing these items and essentially saying, okay, what do those map to? So this is what's in the doc, this is what's in the sheet. So we can have it map somewhere else if we wanted to, but I want them to go to student first name and note to parent. I'm going to click next. I'm going to change the file name now. And what I'm going to do is call it weekly newsletter for student first name. And I just clicked on that, and then I'm going to hit paste. You can also put in the date if you wanted. I'm just going to go ahead and click next again, click next again, click next again, because remember, we already set all that stuff up. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tweak this. Now, what I want to do eventually is change this to parent email address, but I'm not going to do that yet because I need to test this. So what I'm going to do is leave that there. For the subject, I'm going to change this to be, actually what I like to do is this. I like to put student first name and then apostrophe S, newsletter for, and then I'll put in today's date. Right here, I'm going to put dear parent, attached is this week's newsletter, enjoy. Something like that. I'm going to click next. Oh, whoops. Yep, I'm going to click next and then click save. So now what I've done is I've actually changed the job to where it's pulling in the student first name and the note to parent. I still haven't done anything with the parent email address. I would strongly suggest you send these to yourself first. So now what I'm going to do, let me go over here. I got another email while we've been talking, and I want to get that out of the way here. So give me just a second. Okay, so now that I have that out of the way, let's go back over here, and you can see no emails. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click Run. And what's going to happen now is it's going to do that fancy mail merge. And really the way that you can tell it's running is these columns here, these merge doc ID columns, they will fill in. And so what they're doing is in that folder on your drive, it's creating each of these docs and then making PDFs of them and then emailing them out. Again, this process does take a while, and since it does take a while, while it's doing it, let me give you a couple of caveats. Number one, because it does take time, sometimes you will see here it will pop up with an error. However, I can tell you from experience, even if it pops up with an error saying that it should have finished by now, it will keep running. So even if you see that error here, watch this merge doc list, and if it keeps growing, then just let your computer sit. Um, I've seen it take as long as 30 minutes to run them. So usually what I do is I'll hit run on it and then I'll go do something else. I tend to do it maybe when I'm going to the copy room or sometimes I'll do it as the last thing before I walk out the door. Or in my case, I take my computer home a lot. So what I'll do is I'll just do it at home, which which works just fine for me. So you can see it's got 3 of the 4 done. So I'm going to go ahead and pivot over to the emails themselves. Now remember, I'm having them sent to me. So you can see this is what I'm receiving. So as the emails are, and they're sent right away, they are sent from your email address. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Susie's newsletter here. You can see it comes from me to me. The subject is custom. There's the text that I put in, and here's the attached newsletter. And when I click on it, you can see now, and it looks like I forgot to bold it, but you can see Mr. Ramstead's classroom newsletter for Susie. Here is her information, and then there's your generic newsletter. Let's go ahead and go back and take a look at another one. So I'll click here on Achilles. Same thing. You can see that custom text right here. His name's already in there. And then I think it was Jose's that didn't have any text. And you can see it just closes that up. So parents are none the wiser. So the nice thing about this is if you're just like in a big rush and you want to get out the newsletters, but you only have 1 or 2 students that you actually wanted to put something custom in there for, then this is a quick way to do that. Or that you can do that quickly and not have to worry about the rest of the students. So as far as setting up the emails, that's it. Now let me show you one last thing, and that is in your drive. You can see here, those are those newsletters. And so basically it's using your drive to create them. I'm not sure if it continues to create these over time and doesn't delete them, but the truth is after a week or so, you can definitely go back and delete them because they're sent to the parents. This isn't a link to your drive. This is the actual PDF that's attached. You definitely want to take your time and play with this a little bit. It takes some time to set up. In total, I've been sitting here explaining it for a little over 30 minutes, and I'm not putting in any live parent information. So it does take a little bit of time. One last thing I want to show you, and then I'm going to let you go here, is these parent email addresses. Once you test this all and you're going to go ahead and fire it up, what I would do is send an email to the parents and say, hey, we're going to try this new system. You should receive a newsletter in the next 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is. But please let me know if there's something funny about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on this edit here. I'm going to click through all the way to the email itself here. Down here where the 2 is, I'm going to delete out my information. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click parent email address, and I'm going to paste that right in there. Then all you have to do is save that. Now when I run this, it's going to use the parent email address and send them out. Over on, over on my email, you can see down here that there are a bunch of newsletters. These are all in my sent items, so I can still verify that they're sent even though I'm not receiving them. This video's been extremely long. Thank you very much for sitting through all of it. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to help expand on this. Also, there's going to be a link down below the video to the actual article that inspired all of this. This is not something that I created by any stretch, but if there is anything I can do to help with it, please let me know. Thanks.